Okay, so now that you know some of the basic functionality of R and that it can work like a fancy calculator and it even has memory that you can create objects and it'll store it in your working memory. And you also learned how to use a script file. Well, now we're ready to learn how to read in data sets. So in the basics guide, we only learned how to type in manually a data set. And obviously we're going to have some larger data sets that we're going to work with this semester, and we need to be able to read them into R. So what we're going to do is we're going to just work through this R help page called Reading in Data. And you can click here for the data that we're going to use, and it should download for you. I've obviously downloaded it a bunch, the 12th time it looks like. And I give a description of what's in this data file right here. So it's diamonds data, and it's got information on the price in US dollars, the carat weight, the cut, the color of the diamond, the clarity, and some other measurements. All right. Now, what I want you to do is, if you have a Mac, pay attention to this part right here. If you have a Mac, if you have a Windows, just tune me out for a quick sec. If you have a Mac, I want you to double click to open the diamonds.csv file that downloaded. If it opens in Excel, you are good to go. You can ignore the 4 steps. If, however, it opens in Numbers, then you need to follow these 4 steps to change the file association on your Mac to be Excel, and then re-download the data and double-click to open it to make sure that it opens in Excel, and then the rest of the code will work for you for the rest of the semester. Okay, so if your operating system uses Numbers to open that .csv file, you're going to run into big problems in R. You're not going to be able to read in any of your data. Shoot me a message if you have a problem with that. Okay, so now we're ready to read in the data. So we've got this file called diamonds.csv downloaded to the computer. So how do we get it into R? So in Excel, it's pretty easy. You click it, you open it, it's tangible. You can see it right in front of you. You can manipulate it, right? R is different. Just like any other heavy hitter industrial strength software, we're going to have to read it in, and we'll be able to code to do calculations on it. So what I've done is I've put the code, some of the code from this help page over here in my script file. And remember, you can open a script file by doing File, Open Script if you have it saved, or File, New Script if you want a new one. And on a Mac, that's called New Document or Open Document. All right. So my first line is naming something, an object, sparkly. So it's called diamonds on the computer, but I want to name it something different in R to emphasize that you can name this whatever you want. You don't have to put sparkly there. You can put girl's best friend or diamonds or whatever you want to call it. You can call it DIA. It doesn't matter. You can name the object whatever you want. So I'm going to call it sparkly. I'm saying is defined as, that's the less than dash, and then I'm going to use the built-in function in R called read.csv. You'll be using this all semester, so you'll get very familiar with this. Now, the easiest way that my students who are just learning R, the easiest way to pull a data set into R is to use this file.choose command as your first argument of the read.csv function. And what that is it's file.choose open close parentheses. And an important change in R in versions 4.0 and up is that we now have to do comma strings equals true. The full name of that argument is actually strings as factors equals true, which is telling R that character data, that is words, what we would think of as categorical data, should be treated as a factor. So strings as factor equals true. But you can abbreviate it strings equals true. All right, now remember how we run this on a Windows machine. You can have your cursor anywhere on that line and click Control-R on a Mac, Control-Enter, or Control-Return. And the file.choose operator pops up a pop-up window, and you can just navigate to your downloads or wherever you have that diamonds file saved, double-click on it, and it read in. Now, what happened over here? It didn't give me my data set, right? Well, did something go wrong? No. I stored it as sparkly. Now, just bear with me for one moment. I'm going to up arrow, and I'm going to take out this definition symbol. What's going to happen if I just run this code? This is what a lot of newbies do when they're trying to load a data set into R. So a lot of you will be tempted to do this. Let me show you what happens. If I just put that in, I get my file.choose. I'm going to go to downloads, click on diamonds. It's printed the entire 50,000 row data set, and there's not even enough room on the screen to print the whole thing. That it reached its max print. So if you do that and you don't give it an object name as you're calling it in, all you're doing is printing the data on your screen, which is just like printing it on a piece of paper. There's nothing more that you can do with it that way. So we have it pulled in because we already gave it the name Sparkly. So the way that you want to look at your data, obviously you don't want to print it, right? We don't want to type the name Sparkly. We could do that for smaller data sets. What's going to happen if I type Sparkly? Yep, you guessed it. We're going to print it again, okay? So we don't want to do that. That's not a good way to look at our data in general. So what we want to do is use some of the functions. So one of my go-tos is the structure function, str. So I'm going to do str of Sparkly, and let's take a look at what it gives us. This is a nice, concise summary of your data set. So it tells me that it read it in as a data frame, that it has 53,940 observations, which means 53,940 rows, of 11 variables, which means 11 columns. And then it tells you what each column is. So the first column is called X, and it's an integer. The next column is called caret, and it's a numeric. The next one's called cut, and it's a factor. This is why we call our read.csv in with the strings equals true. If yours says character here, then you've read it in incorrectly. You need to put that strings equals true in there. And etc. You can look at the rest of your data. Another nice thing to do, another nice summary, is to use the head function. And the head function, I'm doing Control R in my script file, the head function gives you the first 6 rows and all the columns. So this is a nice display if you don't have too many columns. If you have 100 or 1,000 columns, the head function is not going to help you because it can't all fit on one line and it breaks it up into multiple chunks of 6 lines, and it's not very easy to digest. So when I have big data, I use the structure function for sure, without a doubt. On your smaller data sets, you might prefer the head function because it puts it in like a format that looks a little bit like the way Excel organizes it. And the last one that I like to use is summary. So I hit Control R when I'm on that line in my script file. And what the summary function does is for any of your numeric columns, like numerics or integers, it gives you the 5-number summary plus the mean. So it gives you the min, the first quartile, the median, the third quartile, the max, and the mean. If, however, your data read in as a factor, like cut, it gives you each level of that categorical variable and how many times it appeared. So we have 1,610 fair diamonds, 4,906 good diamonds, 21,551 ideal diamonds, etc. Okay, so that's the way that you should look at your data. One last method that I'll show you is the capital V view function. On a Windows machine, this works pretty well, and you can see that it gives you kind of a Excel-esque look at your data. On a Mac, it's not nearly as good, and you need to make sure that you've downloaded the quartz that's in the instructions in the downloading R file to even use this. Otherwise, you'll get an error message. So anyway, that's just another option for you if you like that one and it works for you. All right, so we've called in the data. The steps you want to remember is that you call in the data with read.csv because we have a .csv file that we downloaded on our computer. We're going to use file.choose, open close parentheses, comma, always make sure to put strings equals true in there, and give your object a name. You can call your data set whatever you want. I just named mine Sparkly, okay? And after you call it in, it's not going to do anything when you read that first line in. You need to do structure, head, and summary, or one or all of those to take a look at your data. That's the way you can look at your data in R. All right, now, if we go down below on the reading in data file, I've covered all that, there's another thing that you can do, and that is you can store all of your files into your working directory. Now you can find out what your working directory is by just typing get WD, and it gives you your working directory. And I find that for my Windows users, this is much more intuitive. It's on your C drive. Mine's on my C drive. In my users, the user called Leslie.Hendricks, and in the folder called Documents. That's where my working directory is. On the Mac, it might not be as obvious. I find that students find it harder to find where their name page is on a Mac. I'm not sure what you call that. But if you can if you know where that folder is, you can just pop your file in there. So let me go, I'm going to open up, I'm going to show my downloaded diamonds.csv in the folder, and then I'm just going to put it, I'm going to copy it and put it into my documents folder. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you another way to read it in. So since I know my working directory is in my documents and I put the file in there, now I can call it in that way. So I'm going to up arrow to grab my code. And what you can do is you can use the read.csv file, and you can just use the name of the file, because it's going to look in your working directory if you specify the name of the file. So diamonds.csv, and I think it was space 12. Whoops. Good gravy. Okay. 12.csv. And I'm just going to give it a different name so you can see that it calls it in. I'm going to call it Sparkly1. Oh, okay. This is awesome that I got this error message. What did I do wrong? What happens when you get a plus? It means you forgot to close out a quote or parenthesis. So I'm going to have to just close that out and start back over, because my quote needs to go in here. All right, so the name of the file in quotes, and then strings equals true, and it pulls it in. So let's look at the structure of Sparkly1, and voila, it pulls it in that way. So if you want to pop your file into your working directory, you can just call in the file using the name of the file instead of file.choose, and put it in quotes. And the last way that I want to teach you is you can point directly to that path, okay? So like if I know mine's in my downloads, I can say Sparkly3 is read.csv, and I can put it in quotes, C://users /Leslie.Hendricks / whoops, I gotta spell it wrong. Okay. Leslie.Hendricks /downloads /diamond space 12.csv quotes strings equals true, and hit enter, and it'll call it in that way too, because I pointed it directly to where it is on my computer. I specified the path, and I give you instructions over here for how to find that path name. So if later you want to do that because you want to automate your script files, so you can point it to wherever you've got the file, and every time you open it, you can just literally click run and don't have to search for the file on your computer, you can try that later. For now, if file.choose is working fine for you, that is absolutely fine with me. And I'm happy to help you find your path too if you're running into difficulty and you want to do that. All right, so remember, the tips are not just extra tips, they're very important notes. Make sure to give your data set an object name, otherwise you're just going to print it on your screen, which is like printing it on a piece of paper. Don't forget to use the strings equals true argument. Notice that the data set is called diamonds.csv on your computer, but in R I named it Sparkly. Those are two different things. Once you call it into R, it has no idea what diamonds.csv is on your computer. It only knows what Sparkly is. And you can name it whatever you want. Always look at your data after you call it into R, using structure, head, one of those functions, summary. Note that if your CSV file has a space or special character in the column name, R is going to put a dot where any special character is. So your column names might be different in R, which is why you should always do the structure to see how the columns are named in R. Also, if it started with a number in Excel, R is going to start that variable name with an X. It's not going to let any object name be started with a number. All right, well, I hope this helps you get your data read in. And up next is working with data.